Peter saw the apparent danger he was in, and he panicked. And he cried out to the Lord. I don't know if any of you have ever had moments of terror, sheer, unadulterated panic in your life. I can remember the time that I was that way. It was many years ago. I was doing a workshop, and one of the things that they had us do was a climbing wall. And this was, not a little kid's wall by any means. Those things were up there. And if you climbed all the way to the top of the wall, then you were expected to leap out and grab a bar and all of this stuff. I'm not real good with heights to begin with. And I remember climbed up 3 or 4 of these handholds, and suddenly I was at the point where I was sure I was going to fall. There was no doubt in my mind. I mean, I had a harness on and, was roped and all of that, but I'd never experienced that before, so I didn't know what that level of safety or protection might be. I was scared out of my wits. And everybody down below was encouraging me, come on, be confident, you can do it, you can do it. I didn't hear any of that. And so finally they told me to just let go, and as they were lowering me back down, and I got a sense of the harness and the safety, how safe it felt, I thought, oh, heck, let me try the wall again. I can do this now that I know what it feels like. But not knowing that, I was panicked. I know what Peter was going through. I'm guessing he could not swim. Probably most of those who were fishermen, it was very much a part of their belief system back then that water was a threat, even though they had to make their living off of it. They didn't trust it. It was evil. So they tended to stay away from it. Peter was drowning. Lord, save me. What are we drowning in today? If Jesus came walking down the aisle, down our main streets, across Lake Lowell, whatever it might be, he would come to us and he might even say, yo, what's with all the hostility? We are drowning nowadays in hostility. The same kind of panic and fear that Peter felt. It's causing us to be afraid when we can't get a handle on things, when we don't feel that we have some control over the way things are. I received an email this week from a woman, and I'm just going to read some brief excerpts from it. Dear Father, I am writing to you as I am extraordinarily concerned about my parents. They have become increasingly fearful and fear-mongering, hateful and hate-mongering. I'm gravely concerned that my parents' hate and fear-mongering is causing conflict within their own family and friends outside of the home. What can be done to help my parents realize that what they are preaching is 100% counter to any Christian act of charity or good? I am looking for some help to enliven my parents to help evolve their mortal souls. And I assume she meant immortal souls, but I didn't write back and correct her. I learned something many years ago. A priest friend of mine who did a lot of work up in North Idaho, supporting human rights, fighting the Aryan nations, he told me that one of the guiding principles is the fact that in difficult times, people seek simple answers to complex questions. And that's why we can oversimplify things. We can label. We can scapegoat. It's their fault. They're the ones that are causing it to happen. They are not part of us. And if only they weren't around, they weren't doing what they were doing, things would be much better. Simple answers to complex questions. As I said, it comes out of fear. The fear of drowning, the fear of falling, the fear of my world not feeling like it's mine. Once upon a time, a group of young hikers were wandering through dense woods. They were singing and having a grand time. As the sun began to go down, some of them worried. How are we going to get out of here, they wondered. Their leader, a young woman who was more familiar with the woods, better than the others, said confidently, "Don't worry, I'll get you out. I know my way around out here." Well, then it got very cloudy, and there was lightning and thunder, and the rain poured down. They ran for cover to an old broken-down lean-to. It rained for 2 hours. By the time it stopped, it was very dark. The sky was hidden behind clouds, and there was no moon peeking out. "Blair Witch Project," someone muttered. One of the girls screamed. One of the boys said, "There's an animal out there, a big animal, and I can hear him." Another girl began to sob and cry out, "I'll never see my family again." But the girl who knew her way around said, "Take my hands. I know the path, even in the dark." Well, they stumbled and bumbled through the forest, tripping on tree roots and bumping up against trees and hearing all kinds of witch-like noises. They all blamed their leader for getting them lost. Some said she was going in the wrong direction and threatened to start out on their own. But they were afraid to do that. Then they got very mean and nasty. "Are we there yet?" they moaned like little kids in a car. They were about to break away from their leader when she said, "Just a couple more minutes." You know what happened? They stumbled out on the road, and their SUV was right there. Yet none of them apologized to the girl who had led them out of the forest. when we are panicked, when we are fearful. We tend to react like frightened animals. It doesn't necessarily bring the best out in us. It didn't in Peter. And in this day and age, for some reason, with the name calling and the hostility, it's like in that first reading. You know, Elijah, the fire and the wind and the earthquake, all of these big, powerful things. But God was not in any of them. And in all the chest thumping and tirades and posts and social media that we do, God's not there in that as well. So what do we do? I've been advising people a lot when they bring this type of concern to me in confession. I encourage them several doses a day of Serencorwiz. And I don't know if any of you have been prescribed Serencorwiz, but it can be very, very effective when taken several times a day. Serencorwiz. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Serenity, courage, wisdom. Serencorwiz. When we are panicked, when we are afraid, when we feel like we're high up against the wall or we are falling into the raging seas, to get back in touch with God, to realize that He is there, to regain our perspective. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, rather than rail and beat my chest against them. The courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So we ask God for serenity, courage, and wisdom, and we might need to ask God as well for some humility. And to do that, maybe we might need to use the new serenity prayer that came out a couple of years ago. God, grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, which is pretty much everyone, since I'm clearly not you, God, at least not the last time I checked. And while you're at it, God, please give me the courage to change what I need to change about myself, which is frankly a lot, since once again, I'm not you, which means I'm not perfect. It's better for me to focus on changing myself than to worry about changing other people, who, as you'll no doubt remember me saying, I can't change anyway. Finally, give me the wisdom to just shut up whenever I think that I'm clearly smarter than everyone else in the room, that no one knows what they're talking about except me, or that I alone have all the answers. Basically, God, grant me the wisdom to remember that I'm not you. Amen. Times when we are drowning, Lord, save me.